IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hi, and welcome to Your Kanoon. This is Amber from Amber Rana Ventures, and welcome to another edition of our immigration special with our overseas partners, Green and Spiegel. And today I have two very interesting guests and senior guests. I have Shoshana Green, who is a senior partner with the firm. Welcome on the show, Shoshana. And I have Alexandra Cole, who again is working with Green and Spiegel. And as you guys would have known, we've had Stephen Green a lot of times. We've had Tim Golden and Ivan also come on the show a lot. So this is the first time we have Shoshana and we're hosting her, and Alexandra as well. So guys, thank you so much for sparing the time. And probably I'm not good at giving good intros, so I'd like you to introduce yourselves and probably let the audience know about what you do. And I hand it over to you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity here. As you mentioned, I've worked my whole life at Green and Spiegel and helped immigrants come to Canada through many different means. And we just try and make it simple and easy and give some solid information for individuals to help them get to Canada. I've been practicing for over 25 years and look forward to many more. And obviously we've helped tons of people come from India specifically and in very different programs, very different scenarios, but ultimately making happy clients. And that's what we do.
Absolutely.
Alex?
Thank you, Amber.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. So I'm a senior associate at Green and Spiegel, and I've worked here for my entire legal career and exclusively in immigration. And, it's great work, and we really enjoy helping people, with their work permits, study permits, immigration to Canada. It's a great place to be.
Thank you so much. So for all my listeners out there, today's session was supposed to be a special live session, but somehow our YouTube has been hacked, and on account of which we could not do this. And so we have to do this audio with them, but shortly we'll be coming out with a live soon, of course, and have Shoshana and Alexandra again probably in the coming month on the show. But to start with, I want to talk about so many things happening on because of the pandemic. So many things have changed now. So let's start with the tech sector first. I've seen an upsurge that I would say the express entry as such for people outside of Canada, and through Stephen Green, of course, I've been trying to see what is happening because we refer a lot of clients. We've not seen outside draws happening, but a lot of tech industry people yet move globally around, I would say, and especially they want to move to Canada because the industry is popping up. So let's talk about that. Maybe you could throw some light on specifically how they can move from a work permit perspective, from converting that work permit into permanent residency, and what do you see in terms of scope? A lot of PNPs are showing again a good intake, like the BC, PNP Tech, and Ontario and New Brunswick, so forth, so on. So maybe if you could throw some light on it.
Sure. Well, I could start initially, and then Alex can jump in. I mean, the tech industry, the one thing that hasn't changed with the pandemic is the ability that tech companies specifically have continued to bring people in successfully to Canada, and we have facilitated on that. I mean, the good news is that sometimes they needed certain things specific for COVID, quarantine exemptions and whatnot, but the world will be opening up in hopefully a week or so with respect to fully vaccinated individuals. And that will make life a little bit better, hopefully, for people arriving in Canada. But specifically with respect to the work permit, the good news is that there is a high demand in Canada. And companies based in Canada, or international companies with branches or offices here, are continuing to move their people with specific skill sets in the tech sector. There is a shortage of individuals. So for those who are working for companies with international presence, they can transfer within intercompany transfers. Or if it's a Canadian branch that needs to hire directly new employees based outside of Canada, the process to bring them here, demonstrating the shortages that we do have in Canada, it's continuing to happen. It's continuing to be made in a pretty efficient manner by the government. And, obviously COVID sort of throws a wrench in it with processing of the work permits. For example, in India, when the visa centers open, close, doctors stop doing medicals because they need to focus their efforts, on COVID response. Those are things beyond anyone's control, but ultimately things are moving. Individuals are, able to come on the temporary route, bring their families here. I mean, Canada's pretty open now, which is great. Hopefully schools are opening next week. Kids can, I think, in the whole country, attend in person, God willing. But we're learning to live with it, and companies they still need. And then as far as transitioning to permanent residence, maybe Alex wants to touch on that. Just focusing on individuals in Canada is obviously a priority for the government.
Right. So as Shoshana said, what we've seen, especially in the last year or so, is the government has really shifted focus to individuals who are already here with Canadian work experience. So getting your foot in the door with that work permit is important. And then once you're here in Canada, usually after you've worked for about a year, as a skilled person coming under either, maybe you've transferred from your company in a specialized knowledge capacity, or maybe your company here in Canada has got a special labor certificate for you to come in as a skilled tech person. You can apply for permanent residence through the express entry system, which in general needs about 1 year of Canadian work experience, a certain English language level, and various other requirements. A lot of people in the tech industry are quite well educated with, whether it's a bachelor's or even a master's level. So we've seen a lot of success with that. And, the government has made it easier for people in Canada to get invited under the express entry system by lowering the scores required. So that's been a positive trend that we've seen in the last year or so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to say, so, the overseas applicants, the draws for the federal skilled workers, it's been a challenge, but hopefully that starts opening up. I mean, the focus will be on younger, higher educated, fluent English, French speakers. I mean, hopefully those individuals will be able to go directly to permanent residence in the very near future. Government opens that up a bit.
Right. So the next question I think I have for you guys is, when we talk about the international mobility program, that's something that most of the corporates are now looking at, and tech sector again is pretty high up there on this, and especially when we focus on India or Asia, a lot of movement would be happening in that. So could you highlight on that international mobility program as such, and maybe even explain to my listeners as to how that works and how can these corporates benefit from the whole program? The intra-company transfer, you did mention that for corporate employees in MNCs it works, but it'll be great if we just have a chat on the international mobility as well, in terms of how it works and who's eligible and how we can look forward and what is the forecast given the pandemic in place.
Right. So, I like to look at it as kind of a distinction between the international mobility program and the temporary foreign worker program, which are the two kind of main umbrellas. So when we're looking at the international mobility program, this is a program that encompasses a number of different types of work permits where the employer in Canada does not need to do a test of the Canadian labor market to prove that there's no Canadian. It's really a way that an employer can say, this is the foreign national candidate that I want to hire. I don't need to do a test because it's either going to, benefit Canada in a significant way economically, or, there's an agreement that we have with this other country where the person is transferring from. And that's how they get around, that requirement to maybe check first if there's a Canadian. The General Agreement on Trade and Services, which we call GATS, is a big one that we use, especially for individuals who are Indian nationals, because India is a signatory of that agreement. And that encompasses that intra-company transfer work permit that is so common. What it is someone who works overseas needs to be working at an entity for at least 1 year. They're either an executive, a manager, or specialized knowledge, and they're transferring to an entity in Canada that has this relationship with the employer that they are already working for. So whether it's, the parent the parent companies in Canada, maybe it's a subsidiary of the company, an affiliate or a branch. And that's really the overall criteria.
Correct. So, I mean, a lot of scope there as well, I would say. And probably I like to highlight to my audience that, most of this information, if you reach out to Green and Spiegel or to us, we'll be able to forward the queries there. And you can always ask the right questions. Don't be in doubt. Don't please go to agents and spoil your chance of moving overseas without having experienced lawyers on board, because a lot of people in India get confused with the international mobility and the agents don't know what to do. So they start doing these funny things with our clients who end up losing thousands of dollars and not getting there. Now, I have another question for you from the IRCC updates perspective of work permits processing and study permits. Now, that's something which I believe there's a huge backlog that the government is going through, and it's understandable due to the pandemic that everybody's applying. But if we talk about India specific, the number of applicants is just enormous, right? And I've been seeing a lot of study permits coming delayed or being rejected due to a lot of reasons and stuff. So maybe if you can update on study and work permits, both in terms of status, timelines, and what one can expect, and even from a study perspective, maybe if you can highlight, how a study permit, after completion of the studies can be converted into a PGW or a postgraduate work permit, and then how can one lead to the Canadian PR, because a lot of students are now in a fix, having their applications not being processed and courses starting and all of that. So I hand it over to you guys for this.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about the study permit scenario. I think it's with respect to those living in India, you have to be really skeptical of the agents, because they're maybe connecting you with schools that may not give you the benefits of coming to Canada to study. Right now, study permit processing is open. There is the student direct stream in India, which makes things processed a little quicker. But, what are we? We're August 25th. Anyone who's thinking about studying in Canada now is looking at either a January start date or a spring start date. It's the spring term or the winter term. Coming from India in January to Canada may be a bit of a shock to the system. But I know people may be thinking about it depending where they're moving. And sometimes I've got clients going to Northern Ontario in January. Wow, it's a big challenge. But regardless, it's really important that the individual, the student, look at the school that they're thinking of attending, the location of it, the program, make sure it's applicable. And number one is make sure it's a designating learning institute, a DLI. There's a list the government posts of the schools that allow you to graduate and get what's called a postgraduate work permit. That's really the golden ticket. If you want to come to Canada and you want to transition to become a permanent resident, you want to go to the right kind of school. So either a public university or a college. Universities are not an issue. They're all excellent and acceptable. The tricky part is when it comes to colleges. Don't start looking at private colleges that, yes, they'll allow you to come and study, they'll take your fees, but the end result won't be the same. And the end result is not just your diploma, your certificate, but it's getting what's called the postgraduate work permit. And what that work permit does, it's open, it's not specific to any employer, and it gives you, the foreign student, the ability to work full-time for anybody, anywhere in Canada. And with that flexibility, you can then use that time wisely, hopefully, that allows you to gain the right kind of Canadian work experience and allows you to get bonus points through the express entry system, because you get bonus points for studying and graduating from a Canadian school, and then you get bonus points for accumulating Canadian work experience. And we saw during the pandemic, the government has been targeting those individuals who are in Canada. So that really gives you, as a foreign national, the most flexibility, and it gives you the best opportunity to pursue permanent residence. And it's that postgraduate work permit, which everyone should strive to get and hopefully use it to the maximum benefit. I mean, the only wild card is the province of Quebec, but every other province you can work in and succeed. And as long as you're not self-employed, because that's something that will take you out of it and not give you those bonus points, but just working towards that 1 year that Alexandra had mentioned, the 1 year Canadian work experience really puts you up, gives you those bonus points that allows you and your family successfully transition. I mean, and then Amber, you had mentioned the agents to be careful. I mean, one thing that is super common, sadly, is that a lot of the agents will facilitate those study permit applications and perhaps not give the fullest information on the individual. So they may think it's easier to come to Canada as a single person when in fact they're married. And that will catch up with you later on. That will catch up because if you're married and immigration finds out about it, then you haven't told them the truth. And then you're all messed up because the government will punish you for not telling the truth. And they'll find you to be what's called inadmissible for misrepresentation, which is basically just lying. And lying doesn't get you anywhere when it comes to Canadian immigration. It has to be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And ultimately that will work to your success. So just be really careful because immigration looks at your whole history. Just because you come on a study permit, they don't forget about it. They have big memories and all the information is kept in their computers and their systems. And they'll always be comparing everything you've talked to them about. So that's with respect to the study permit processing. Maybe Alex, you want to touch on the work permit processing? That's where we're at right now.
Before Alex, you come in, I'll highlight, Shoshana, it's very nice of you to talk about that because, when we were partnering and when me and Stephen were having this chat that, we have an MOU where we can help people, it was basically based on this, that the amount of people that end up losing their status in Canada is tremendously huge because they're doing it through these agents who are telling them all kinds of these schemes that don't work, whether it's study permit or work permit, people paying to get a LMIA, a work permit, and it's massive, right? And the owner-operator scheme saw, I don't know how many people defrauded and they ended up losing thousands of dollars. So please do not reach out to somebody who just charges you with a lump sum amount to get something done, which is not the right way to go about. And Shoshana's highlighted, they don't forget. And it's just not even Canada. You'll get, I would use the harsh word, screwed in UK, in US, in Australia, in New Zealand, probably just about anywhere you set your foot in.
Yeah, Canada wants to know about if you've been refused for other countries. A nice little one that people always forget about is telling the kid, because there's a specific question. Have you ever been refused a visa to anywhere? And a lot of people seem to forget about those refusals. And you can't forget. And immigration will come back to you and say, hey, we know you were refused a US visa. We know you were refused a UK visa. Why didn't you tell us about it? And they could deny your application if you didn't tell them that.
Right, just by lying on that small form. So again, guys, please be very careful. Please reach out to Green and Spiegel. Please reach out to us. We'll be able to help you connect with them and get this out. Please use the rightful means. I do understand that agents get you quick fixes, but they're not permanent fixes. You'll end up losing that money. And immigration law is a practice. Even I don't practice it. That is why we have Green and Spiegel as partners. It's a law practice. It's not a business that is run totally on basis of just whims and fancies. So again, this is my caution alert to everybody out there. And Alexandra, coming out to you next. Where we left you, please, could you continue with that?
Sure. So I think on just the note of the postgraduate work permit, which, as Shoshana mentioned, is one of those things that can be important for someone to gain that 1 year of Canadian work experience. The duration of your program is also very important. So, it has to be at least an 8-month program. And if you have a program from 8 months to up to 2 years, your postgrad work permit will be issued for the duration of your program. So, if it was an 11-month program, the work permit will be 11 months, which obviously is not 12 months and may not be as helpful to you as perhaps if you take a 2-year program.
Right.
So it's just also important to think about that when you're choosing your program. And it might seem easier to do something that's shorter, but in the long run, you'll be in a better position if perhaps you have at least a 2-year work permit or even 3 years. So that's important. And then, in terms of actually applying for a postgraduate work permit, one thing that I find very helpful for students is the ability to start working right away once they submit the postgraduate work permit application. So in order to get that benefit, it's very important that the student applies for their postgrad work permit while they still hold their valid study permit. So, don't wait until after your study permit expires. You do have 180 days after you've completed your program requirements to submit it, but do not wait that long. You should apply as soon as you're eligible, and then you can actually start working while your postgrad work permit is in process with immigration, as long as you meet all the requirements. But that's, I think, a really important thing to note.
Right. So I think that's something that all the audience should actually focus on, these small nitty-gritties, and I think then you're safe. Now we can talk about probably the IRCC updates on recently everything that's been happening, and I would be the most interested contender in that, because I have to fly to Canada, and I don't know how I'll be able to do that. I've been harping on Stephen because he got my application sorted. So guys, Green and Spiegel is getting me to Canada, but now they're going to talk about how how it works and what is the process and what would be the way around it and what is the right way. So all the updates from your side.
So, right now there's a travel restriction in place for, most countries around the world. We have slightly different rules which have been in place since August 9th for individuals traveling from the United States. But Canada is expected to ease travel restrictions for the rest of the world who are considered fully vaccinated on September 7th.
I am fully vaccinated.
Perfect. But, the definition of fully vaccinated can be very important because obviously, countries around the world have different availability of various types of vaccines. So Canada currently only recognizes Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. So, if you have a full series of those vaccines as of September 7th, yes, exactly. They have,
same one.
Same one. On September 7th, you should be able to travel for tourism or any other purpose. Whereas right now, there's a very specific limited list of travel exemptions, such as, holding a work permit approval letter or holding a study permit approval letter for a designated learning institution. So that's expected in the coming months. As we know, there's currently a restriction just generally on direct flights coming from India, which I believe is in place until September 21st. And so, from our perspective, we've had clients who have, work permit approvals or study permit approvals coming from India. Many of them have been successful in traveling through Mexico, for example. It's a stopover in Mexico where they take a COVID test and then they're able to travel to Canada following that.
So that's the longest route I can think of, going to Mexico first. So I think
get a little holiday in there.
Yeah. I believe there is but Stephen was telling me off the topic, he was telling me I could fly in through Dubai as well. I don't know if that works with the Emirates, but yeah, me and my spouse, we're looking at that. We're looking at that as well. And on the draws front, I'll just close quickly with you on the draws front. What can you look at in terms of these, again, express entry draws and PNP draws, and especially in those tech draws? Can people expect them to catch up sometime soon in the coming months? Because we've been talking about it since June, July, that it's going to happen, but I think it's getting delayed due to the whole admin being sorted around this. But if you could update on that as well, what can one expect?
Well, on the draws, it's absolutely unpredictable with respect to knowing when it's going to open up. I mean, it's very challenging because we can't predict anymore. Clients who we said had no chance if they were in Canada, with lower English tests, they actually were able to transition. So that's the good news. The good news is for people who are physically located in Canada right now. The bad news is for people who are abroad, they're just going to have to wait longer because we don't know when those draws are going to open up. The PNPs are options and are available, but they're so small, the numbers, and again, they're unpredictable. The BC, the Tech one, Ontario does random draws. They may send a tweet about, we're going to do a draw tomorrow for 50 people. So it's not really that helpful to the general public. It's a bit frustrating, but the good news is that, for those physically located in Canada, chances are improving. For those who are abroad, I think that hopefully soon. We keep saying that, and we just have to continue to hope for that. Unfortunately, there's no, the government's announcements are focused on facilitating those in Canada. Their statements are really on that, but we still there's a whole world out there that they know they need to access, and then we can't do without it. So it'll happen. We just don't know.
So I see light at the end of the tunnel for me and my spouse at least. So we were very positive about that. We'll be able to make sure that we land. And thank you so much for being here and with us. And we'll have you more. We want to do a live session again. I'll say so. And that's when the audience really connects. But this was helpful. We had such great interaction and so much of info. Thanks, Alexandra, and thanks, Shoshana, for being here. I hope it was a treat for you guys as well to interact. And we didn't have much of interaction in terms of audience as well. But next time we look to put that great experience for you guys. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you guys.
Thank you, Amber. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it in the future.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this. Thank you. Thanks, Sumit. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Longest Constitution with Priya, get a closer look at laws that protect our children from sexual abuse. Ashton Doctor joins Sadaf and Harchit on Nankari to talk about the mental and physical benefits of intermittent fasting. On Misconduct, Raghavi and Nisha tell us how Seema Parihar went from being a bandit to a Big Boss contestant. On The Fighting Goat, Arjun and Somesh talk to Ranjit Ravindran about how mixed martial arts as a sport got so popular in India. And on This Round Is On Me with Gauri, Chef Aarti Sampath shares her experience of cooking for Prime Minister Modi when he was in the US. Do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: Ciet Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intuit India. We really do appreciate the support. You are what makes this possible.
முன்ன ஒரு காலத்துலன்னு ஆரம்பிச்சு நம்ம தாத்தா பாட்டி சொல்ற கதை நம்ம யாருக்குமே மறக்காது. ஸ்டோரி டைம் தமிழ் அந்த பொன்னான காலத்துக்கு உங்களை மறுபடியும் கூட்டிக்கிட்டு போக போகுது. ஹாய், ஸ்டோரி டைம் தமிழ் பாட்காஸ்டுக்காக உங்களுடன் ரவிசங்கர் பாலச்சந்திரன். பொழுதுபோக்கு மட்டும் இல்லாம உங்க குழந்தைகளுக்கு நல்ல நெறிகளை கற்பனையுடன் கூடிய கதைகளாக வழங்க வருகிறது ஸ்டோரி டைம் தமிழ் பாட்காஸ்ட். ஒவ்வொரு நாளும் புதிய புதிய கதைகளை IVM இணையதளத்திலையும் IVM பாட்காஸ்ட் ஆப்லயும் யூடியூப்லயும் மத்த ஆடியோ தளங்களிலும் நீங்க கேட்கலாம்.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं. नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का. आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं. हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार